Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Russia to attend the BRICS summit. He meets the Russian President Vladimir Putin ahead of the summit. The 6th India-Singapore Defence Ministers Dialogue takes place in New Delhi. India's Rajnath Singh highlights importance of defence ties in India's Act East policy. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken reaches Israel, the first stop of a wider West Asia tour which is aimed at reviving Gaza ceasefire talks. The German Chancellor Scholz to pay an official visit to India from October 24 for the 7th intergovernmental consultations. Up first is news from the 16th BRICS summit in Kazan in Russia. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a two-day visit to Russia, where he began the day's engagements with meeting the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Both leaders held discussions on several areas of mutual interest, including the regional and international domain. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that India has deep and historical ties with Kazan city. The Prime Minister added that the opening of India's new embassy in Kazan will further strengthen these ties.
मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि ब्रिक्स समिट के लिए कजान जैसे खूबसूरत शहर में आने का अवसर मिला है। इस शहर के साथ भारत के गहरे और ऐतिहासिक संबंध रहे हैं। कजान में भारत के नए कॉन्सुलेट के खुलने से ये संबंध और मजबूत होंगे।
Speaking on the conflict, Prime Minister Modi said that they should be resolved in a peaceful manner.
एक्सेलेंसी, रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय पर हम लगातार संपर्क में रहे हैं। जैसा मैंने पहले भी कहा है, हमारा मानना है कि समस्याओं का समाधान शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से ही होना चाहिए। शांति और स्थिरता की जल्द से जल्द बहाली का हम पूरी तरह समर्थन करते हैं। हमारे सभी प्रयास मानवता को प्रमुखता देते हैं। आने वाले समय में भी भारत हर संभव सहयोग देने के लिए तैयार है। एक्सेलेंसी, आज इन सभी विषयों पर विचार साझा करने का एक और महत्वपूर्ण अवसर है।
The Russian President Vladimir Putin said that India and Russia share a strategic partnership, and he said that several important decisions need to be taken to improve the working of BRICS.
We appreciate the ongoing Indo-Russian cooperation as important. Russia and India have a special privileged partnership which keeps growing. We welcome your decision to open Council General in Kazan. The relations between the two nations will improve under your leadership.
Both leaders met on the sidelines of the 16th BRICS summit, which is being held in the Russian city of Kazan. Now, beginning the day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a warm welcome at the Hotel Corstone. Speaking about which, the Prime Minister said that the Indian community has distinguished itself all over the world with their accomplishments. He added that equally gladdening is the popularity of Indian culture globally. The summit is themed on strengthening multilateralism for just global development and security. This is the first summit of the grouping after it was expanded in Johannesburg last year. The BRIC, which was the original formation, was the formal grouping started after the meeting of Russia, India and China in St. Petersburg in 2006. It was agreed to expand the BRIC to BRICS with the inclusion of South Africa in 2010. Last year, the expansion was the first such exercise since 2010. The new members include Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran and the United Arab Emirates. And DD India's Jessica Taneja now joins us live from Kazan in Russia for more. Jessica, tell us a little bit about the importance of the bilateral meetings that Prime Minister is taking, on the sidelines of the summit, and whether they are structured or not.
Well, at this point, we do know that Prime Minister has met with Russian President Vladimir Putin today. Well, tomorrow will be a busy day, Mark. As you know, we've seen in the previous BRICS summits as well, the Prime Ministers had many polar sides and bilateral meetings that are decided at the event. So expect a lot more bilateral meetings and polar sides for tomorrow. Some important ones you already know, that the presence of the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will be there, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, and not to forget, of course, the Chinese President Xi Jinping has also arrived today in Kazan. South African President Lula da Silva, you saw the reports yesterday, would not be able to make it this time around because of a medical issue back home. So apart from the BRICS member nations, there'll be a lot of other nations will also be in attendance, for example, Uzbekistan as well. So expect few bilateral meetings and polar sides tomorrow, but for today it was limited to meeting the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and we know the outcomes of that so far. They spoke about the BRICS expansion, the BRICS unity, and also spoke about the previous cooperations and taking stock of the initiatives which were taken during Prime Minister's visit earlier this year in July, and talking about opening a new consulate in Kazan. It is important because there are more than 1,000 students here, and the presence of Indian diaspora seems to be increasing, so the need for opening a consulate has been even more.
Jessica, also now you've talked about the expansion. What's the implication of an expanded BRICS for the global South?
Well, more representation, inclusion in the financial system. The nations have been advocating for their, inclusion for the longest time, and the way the financial system has been weaponized, according to them, has not created so much room for the kind of needs that developing nations have, especially of the global South. So their representation matters. And BRICS, if not a counter, does give an opportunity as an alternate grouping, a multilateral grouping for them to be able to make their initiatives heard. Now you see the conflicts both in West Asia and Eurasia have clearly affected the countries in the global South, and not to forget, most of them are still reeling under the impact of pandemic, and would need more assistance in terms of climate financing and, of course, inclusion in the financial system where they could trade with countries apart from the Western bloc that they already did earlier. But looking for more space in other multilateral forums is what was expected from countries of the global South, and India has been the leading voice, so expect more action around that.
Yes, thanks a lot, Jessica Taneja, for joining us from Kazan with the update. Now, still to come here on DD India News Hour. As D-Day approaches, both Republicans and Democrats feel the wind is blowing their way. Russia-North Korea military cooperation and how South Korea sees it. We also get you updates on the offensive and counter-offensive in West Asia.
Who will be the next president of United States of America?
Will Donald Trump make a dramatic comeback, or will Kamala Harris become America's first woman president?
It's a tight race to the White House.
The knives are out and the battle lines sharply drawn.
He's becoming increasingly unstable and unhinged.
She's a threat to democracy because she shouldn't even be the candidate.
I'm Amritpal Singh.
I'm Shubhendu Ghosh.
We travel across the United States
To decode the issues at the heart of this polarized election.
Watch this space only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. The crossroads of democracy, the 2024 United States presidential election is just a few weeks away. As the world watches, America stands at a pivotal moment in its history. The election promises to be a defining contest, shaping the nation's trajectory for generations to come. The battle is close. Find out more in this report. Here's Antara Sinha's report.
Things are heating up in the US. The 2024 United States presidential elections are set to be held on the 5th of November. It has become the hottest topic for political enthusiasts globally. With the last leg of campaigning going on now, both presidential candidates, US Vice President Kamala Harris and former US President Donald Trump, are putting their heart and soul into the process, along with sharp attacks at each other. A recent Reuters poll has indicated that with the US drawing nearer to the November 5 presidential election, Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris leads Republican Donald Trump by just 3 percentage points, with 45% to 42%. As the race for the presidency heats up, Harris and Trump conveyed a very different message about the polls, with Harris saying that Trump is a threat to democracy.
Imagine Donald Trump, based on everything we know about him and everything we see now and before, imagine him with no guardrails. Because all of those folks who worked with him before, they're not those who held him back, who attempted to ensure that he would follow the law, are no longer there.
While Donald Trump rejects the notion of being a threat to democracy, rather argues that it is Democrats who are the real threat to democracy. Having survived multiple assassination attempts in the past, he has said that God has saved him for a purpose.
But as I look back at my life's journey and events, I now recognize that it's been the hand of God leading me to where I am today. And my faith took on new meaning on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, where I was knocked to the ground, essentially, by what seemed like a supernatural hand. And I would like to think that God saved me for a purpose, and that's to make our country greater than ever before.
With opinion polls showing a close race, the two candidates are picking up the pace. Their frenzied campaign schedules underlining the importance of small pockets of voters that could put their candidate over the top. Antara Sinha for DD India.
While the Indian-American diaspora is in focus in the upcoming presidential elections in the United States, another area of convergence between the two countries is the domain of art. DD India correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh speaks to John Guy, the curator of South and Southeast Asian art at the famous Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York.
One of the best ways to learn about the diversity of Indian culture is through its art. I have with me someone who has done important work in this domain. I have with me Mr. John Guy, the curator of South and Southeast Asian art at the famous Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. Your idea of the manner in which art has the power to bring nations and cultures closer?
I think in many ways, presenting art of diverse cultures in a large museum like the Met, which is one of the few truly encyclopedic museums of the world. These are global museums in the sense they try and present the wide range of cultures, the diversity of cultures globally. To present these to our audiences is a fundamental mission. It's an educational mission, and underlying that is a more profound one which relates to mutual understanding, respect, and hopefully world peace.
Can you also tell us about your interest in Indian art in particular? Any particular pieces of artworks that are close to your heart as a curator, and why?
Well, I've always been very drawn to the early phases of art in India, including particularly the Buddhist art, but also early Brahmanical and Jain imagery. And we were privileged to put together a major exhibition with very important loans from India the last year called Tree and Serpent, Early Buddhist Art of India, which highlighted Buddhist art from the southern regions. And this was an innovative project done in partnership with the Ministry of Culture and National Museum, ASI, and 6 state governments.
How do you see the power of art in bringing nations like India and the United States closer, the road ahead for cultural diplomacy, if I may use that phrase?
But I think it's becoming increasingly important. In a troubled world that we live in, cultural diplomacy, what is now has become a fashionable term, I understand, in diplomatic circles, is now called soft diplomacy, and a way in which cultural engagement, sharing, partnerships, exchange of objects. Museums globally now are collecting less than they did in the past for the correct reasons.
That was the curator at the Met Museum, Mr. John Guy, talking about Indian art, the power of art in bridging cultural distances and the road forward for cultural diplomacy. This is Shubhendu Ghosh with camera person S. Shankar in New York for DD India.
And Shubhendu Ghosh is now joining us live from New York. Good to have you with us, Shubhendu. Good morning to you. How successful has early voting been so far?
Good morning, Mark. Early voting is still on across many states. For example, Texas and Florida open for early voting on Monday. As the rule suggests, about 45 days in advance to the election day, states can choose when to conduct early voting. Most of the states do practice this early voting so as to ensure maximum participation from the electorate. As we speak, millions of Americans have already voted in these round of elections ahead of the big election day on November 5th. If we look at the polls coming in, traditionally we see that early voting is something that the Democrats supporters prefer. So their numbers tend to be slightly on the higher side as compared to the Republicans who support one important day, election day, 5th of November, as a day of voting. So it is expected that the kind of polls that we are getting at the moment of a slight edge to Kamala Harris is expected to be balanced out by the voting that will take place on November 5th. Meanwhile, the focus is on the swing states, really the battleground. 7 states is where the contest is seen as most intense. That's where the candidates are also really putting in all their strength and weight behind. We saw Kamala Harris planning to campaign in Wisconsin, in Michigan and Philadelphia. Donald Trump in North Carolina, meeting and seeking the concerns of the people who were affected by Cyclone Helene. Right. So early voting is still on a mark, but the focus increasingly shifting to the swing states as we speak.
Also, Shubhendu, how much does foreign policy impact voters? Or, are they more concerned with the domestic issues?
Well, for a polarized election that we're witnessing this time over in the US, Mark, it is really difficult to put a finger on which issue is really going to drive the voter to the voting booth or their support. But yes, there is a cross-section of issues that drive the voters. We've spoken to voters who, in fact, are very vocal about America's position on foreign affairs because they see America's identity not just as what they experience here at home domestically, but also what America represents in the global geopolitics. And in that sense, we do see that the two leaders, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, present opposing views as to the direction in which America could be headed under their respective leadership. So in that sense, foreign policy is definitely a concern for many voters. At the same time, a domestic issue, whether it is about illegal immigration, whether it is about abortion rights, whether it's about economy and cost of living, there is a cross-section of issues that the voters are affected by, and it will be interesting to see how they weigh all these options and make a final decision.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Shubhendu Ghosh, for joining us from New York with that update. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Israel on Tuesday, the first stop of a wider West Asia tour, which is aimed at reviving Gaza ceasefire talks. The top U.S. diplomat's 11th trip to the region since the beginning of the conflict comes as Israeli military intensifies its campaign in the Palestinian enclave as well as in Lebanon against Hezbollah. Blinken's planned week-long trip will include a stopover in Jordan on Wednesday and one in Doha. So the focus of the discussions will be finding ways to end this conflict, plans also for the enclave after the fighting ends, and how to improve humanitarian assistance. However, experts say that any breakthrough ahead of the looming U.S. election looks elusive. Well, the visit also comes on the day when Hezbollah has launched a volley of rockets at two key bases near Tel Aviv and a naval base as well, west of Haifa. Hezbollah said that it had fired rockets at the Glilot base, which is used by the Unit 8200 unit of Israel's military intelligence, and the Nirit area, which is near Tel Aviv. In fact, it's a suburb of Tel Aviv. So the group said that it also fired rockets at a naval base outside of the port city of Haifa, which is further north. Now, there were no immediate reports of casualties. However, Israeli authorities declared a state of emergency in Tel Aviv, and also all air traffic at the Ben Gurion airport has been halted. All this comes after a heavy night of Israeli strikes on Lebanon's south and southern suburbs of its capital. The explosion in Beirut before daybreak caused sparks to fly into the air and released a black plume of smoke. The Israeli strikes in Beirut's southern suburbs included one near the Rafiq Hariri University Hospital, and that's the capital's main government hospital. Meanwhile, India has sent humanitarian assistance for the people of Palestine through the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. The first tranche of assistance, comprising 30 tons of medicine and food items, has departed on Tuesday. The consignment includes a wide range of essential medicines and surgical supplies, dental products, general medical items, and high-energy biscuits. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz welcomed the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, on Tuesday. Both leaders met to deepen economic and diplomatic ties between the regions. Scholz will host the Emir at the Messeburg Castle to discuss bilateral ties in energy, trade, and regional security. Global security issues are also on the agenda of the meet. Qatar is a strategic partner for Germany as an alternative source of energy after the Russia-Ukraine conflict began in 2022. Qatar is also a key investor in the German economy. Well, South Korea has pledged countermeasures in line with the level of military cooperation between Russia and North Korea. The comments came as South Korea's presidential office urged Pyongyang to immediately withdraw North Korean troops that Seoul says have been dispatched to Russia for the war with Ukraine. Here's the report.
Russia-North Korea military cooperation is now the talk of the hour for global leaders. This comes after China, South Korea and US have voiced concerns over North Korea's troop deployment to fight alongside Russia in Ukraine. The US stressed that it is a dangerous move for North Korea to send its troops to Russia.
We have seen reports the DPRK has sent forces and is preparing to send additional soldiers to Ukraine to fight alongside Russia. If true, this marks a dangerous and highly concerning development and an obvious deepening of the DPRK-Russia military relationship. We are consulting with our allies and partners on the implications of such a dramatic move.
The comments came as South Korea's presidential office urged Pyongyang to immediately withdraw North Korean troops that Seoul says have been dispatched to Russia for the war with Ukraine. South Korea has also pledged countermeasures over North Korea-Russia military cooperation.
The government is calling for the immediate withdrawal of the North Korean troops, and if the current military collusion between North Korea and Russia continues, we will not tolerate but act firmly with the international community. The government will execute gradual steps in response in line with the developments in the Russia-North Korea military cooperation following the deployment of North Korean troops.
On Friday, South Korea's National Intelligence Service said North Korea has sent 1,500 special operation forces to Russia earlier this month to support Moscow. However, both Moscow and Pyongyang have denied the claims, and US officials have said that they are still investigating the reports. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, let's take a look at other stories making the news around the world. Britain will lend Ukraine $2.94 billion as part of a broader loan package from G7 countries, supported by frozen Russian central bank assets to assist with purchasing weapons and rebuilding war-damaged infrastructure. The Slovak Prime Minister, Robert Fico, has welcomed his Hungarian counterpart Viktor Orban and the Serbian President Alexander Vučić to discuss protecting the European Union's borders against illegal migration on Tuesday. Bolivians are grappling with fuel shortages and skyrocketing prices following a week of roadblocks by supporters of the former president Evo Morales, who is being investigated for alleged child abuse during his time in office. King Charles III greeted crowds at the Sydney Opera House on Tuesday, marking a public finale of his first major overseas tour since his cancer diagnosis. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. India's petroleum minister says that there is no shortage of oil in the world. He says prices depend on global factors. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is in the United States for the IMF World Bank meetings.
Who will be the next president of United States of America?
Will Donald Trump make a dramatic comeback, or will Kamala Harris become America's first woman president?
It's a tight race to the White House.
The knives are out and the battle lines sharply drawn.
He's becoming increasingly unstable and unhinged.
She's a threat to democracy because she shouldn't even be the candidate.
I'm Amritpal Singh.
I'm Shubhendu Ghosh.
We travel across the United States
to decode the issues at the heart of this polarized election.
Watch this space only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Russia to attend the BRICS summit. He meets the Russian President Vladimir Putin ahead of the summit. The 6th India-Singapore Defence Ministers' dialogue takes place in New Delhi. India's Rajnath Singh highlights the importance of defence ties in India's Act East policy. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken reaches Israel. It's the first stop in a wider West Asia tour aimed at reviving Gaza ceasefire talks. Also, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is going to pay a visit to India. It's an official visit from October 24 for the 7th Intergovernmental Consultations. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and his Singaporean counterpart Dr. Ng Eng Hen, they held the 6th India-Singapore Defence Ministers' dialogue in New Delhi on Tuesday. The event also marks 10 years of India's Act East policy.
Singapore Minister of Defence Dr. Ng Eng Hen was accorded Guard of Honour at the Manekshaw Centre in Delhi. The two defence ministers later co-chaired the 6th India-Singapore Defence Ministers' dialogue. Speaking on the occasion, India's Minister of Defence Rajnath Singh said this bilateral meeting follows Prime Minister Narendra Modi's successful visit to Singapore earlier this year. He stressed that defence cooperation is an important area of the bilateral relations between the two countries.
हमारे देशों के बीच बढ़ती निकटता का ये प्रमाण है। ये मीटिंग ऐसे समय में हो रही है कि भारत अपनी एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी का एक दशक पूरा कर रहा है, जिसमें सिंगापुर ने महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाई है। इस रीजन के देशों ने इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन, बिलैटरल टाई और स्ट्रेटेजिक कनेक्टिविटी के विकास में भी आपकी बहुत ही अहम भूमिका रही। हमारी बायलैटरल पार्टनरशिप का एक महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्र है जो तीनों सर्विसेज के बीच फोकस डिफेंस कोऑपरेशन मैकेनिज्म्स और कंटिन्यूअस एंगेजमेंट के माध्यम से ये लगातार बढ़ रहा है।
The Defence Minister of Singapore is visiting India with a top military brass that includes the colonel rank officers of all the three services. Reciprocating at the opening remarks of the Defence Minister of India, Dr. Hen said that for Singapore, India has always been part of the East. This meeting would surely strengthen the bilateral ties between the two nations. He said the meeting aims to carry forward defense cooperation between the two countries. Both sides are expected to exchange views on regional and global issues of shared interest. Vishal Baristow's report for DT India.
Earlier, the visiting dignitary Dr. Hen laid a wreath at the National War Memorial and he signed the visitor's book. Hardeep Singh Puri, India's Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, participated in the 7th Global Sustainable Technology and Innovation Community Conference today. And speaking on oil prices, the minister said that there is no shortage of oil in the world. It depends on global factors. The conference was held in New Delhi and it aims at accelerating technological solutions to reach the SDGs.
And global factors, one thing is very clear, there is no shortage of oil in the world. Today, more and more oil is coming on the market. There are other factors like geopolitical tensions, etc. So what happens? There's no shortage of oil. But if there's tension in one part of the world, then the cost of, if you have to take a longer route, then the cost of the freight cost, the insurance freight cost, that will go up. But today, let us all, including the fourth distinguished members of the fourth estate, the press, let's all say that, oh, better sense prevails. the call for peace, etc., which our Prime Minister has been making from every forum, that it's time for diplomacy and for finding solutions.
Well, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is in the United States, where she was hosted by Lynn Martin, who's the president of the New York Stock Exchange, on her visit to the largest bourse in the world. The finance minister also took a tour of the National Historic Landmark and also looked at the aspects of trading at the NYSE. This bourse, in fact, displayed 11 Indian companies trading. And addressing the gathering at the NYSE, Sitharaman emphasized India's emerging role in the new world order.
2047, as India celebrates 100 years of independence, we will have a chance to define a new era of prosperity, not just for our own citizens, but for the global community as well. India's role in the world is expanding, and we stand ready to engage constructively with the international community. While there are challenges ahead, there are also abundant opportunities for India to lead the way, not just in economic terms, but in shaping the global discourse on technology, sustainability, and inclusive growth.
The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will pay an official visit to India from October 24 for the 7th intergovernmental consultations. The German Chancellor, along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, will co-chair the 7th Intergovernmental Consultations on October 25. The two leaders will hold bilateral talks to discuss enhanced security and defense cooperation, greater opportunities for mobility of talent, deeper economic cooperation, green and sustainable development partnership, and collaboration in the area of emerging and strategic technologies. Discussions will also focus on important regional and global developments. Both leaders will also address the 18th Asia-Pacific Conference of German Businesses, which is being held in New Delhi on October 25. About 650 top business leaders and CEOs from Germany, India and other countries are expected to participate in this event. Chancellor Scholz has visited India twice last year for the bilateral state visit in February of 2023, and then he attended the G20 Leaders Summit in September of 2023. India and Germany have a strategic partnership, and that has been on since 2000, the year 2000. And the two countries are celebrating 50 years of science and technology collaboration this year. The day after India and China reached a pact on patrolling arrangements along the line of actual control in East Ladakh, the Indian Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi has said that India wants to restore its pre-2020 position with China.
We want to go back to the status quo of April 2020. Point number one. Thereafter, we will be looking at disengagement, de-escalation, normal management of line of actual control. And this normal management of line actual control will not just stop there. There are phases in that also.
Well, the Reserve Bank of India Governor Shaktikanta Das highlighted the resilience of India's growth story, forecasting the real GDP growth of 7.2% for FY 2024-25. He emphasized that rising consumption and investment demand, bolstered by improved agricultural conditions and rural demand, will drive this growth. He noted that strong performance in the services sector will further enhance urban demand. Additionally, the government expenditure is expected to align with budget estimates, while CPI inflation for 2024-25 is projected at 4.5%. The SCL Startup Meet 2024 showcases the Semiconductor laboratory's expertise and encourages collaboration between startups and research institutions in the semiconductor industry. This event focuses on areas like VLSI design, technology, fabrication, testing, and packaging to drive innovation. By supporting Indian startups, this initiative boosts local manufacturing and also reduces reliance on imports. SCL, as India's sole integrated defense manufacturer, it provides startups with advanced infrastructure to speed up product development and global market entry.
Without
without significant contribution from the manufacturing industry. And we as a part of the electronic industry have largely to focus on the electronic manufacturing part of it. We have made significant contribution in the past few years. We have been growing at a CAGR of almost 14%. And we have become actually the net exporters of from being the almost 70% importers of mobile 10 years back. We have presently become almost 100% self-sufficient in mobile. And we are also exporting mobiles and also exporting electronics to the extent of roughly $29 billion US.
Meet is a unique event which provides a platform for Indian startup to connect, collaborate, and to utilize India's own foundry. The idea was to tap potential of startups and showcasing the potential of the extraordinary talent which our country possesses in this field.
Some weather-related news now. And Indian coastal states of West Bengal and Odisha are on high alert as the cyclone Dana approaches, and it's expected to make landfall on October 24. According to the Met Department, Cyclone Dana is likely to strike the North Odisha and West Bengal coasts between Puri and Sagar Island during Thursday night and early Friday morning as a severe cyclonic storm, in view of which a red warning has been issued for, this is a red warning of heavy to very heavy rainfall with isolated extremely heavy rainfall and thunderstorms with lightning. So fishermen have always been advised in these conditions not to venture into the sea between October 23 and 25. The weather system is also expected to bring light to moderate rainfall along the coasts and in South Bengal, including Kolkata, and that starts from Wednesday. Colombia's leaders have called for a revolution in how they live. During the opening plenary of the COP16 summit. Colombia is the current host of this UN climate meet. Flanked by representatives from indigenous groups, Colombian President Gustavo Petro slammed the United States, China and Europe, saying that they're the world's biggest carbon emitters. During the summit, delegates aim to look for ways to halt the rapid destruction of nature, which has led to a 69% decline in global wildlife populations since 1970.
The risky economies are the ones that exterminate life today, the ones that emit the most CO2 into the atmosphere. They are fossil, oil, coal and gas economies. They are the powerful economies, the United States, China and Europe.
The Indian Pavilion was inaugurated at the MIPCOM 2024, which is a global market for entertainment content across platforms. This is in Cannes in France. The Indian Ministry of Information Broadcasting and the Ministry of Commerce and Industry have jointly inaugurated this pavilion. It happened on Tuesday. The ceremony was graced by the CEO of Prasar Bharati, Gaurav Dwivedi, besides others who were accompanied by a ministerial delegation highlighting India's collaborative efforts in the global media space. With the Ministry of Information Broadcasting's strategic focus on building international partnerships and its Create in India brand message, India is positioning itself as a global content hub, ready to shape the future of entertainment worldwide. Let's take a look now at other stories making the news. The Punjab Health Minister Balbir Singh tackled the issue of stubble burning on Tuesday, voicing concern over its impact on both farmers and residents of the state. The newly appointed chief of the National Commission for Women, Vijaya Kishore Rahatkar, has taken charge in New Delhi. The Chhattisgarh government is rebuilding the Narayanpur road, which has been closed for years because of Naxal violence. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. The Commonwealth Games has become budget-friendly this time. And the Indian hockey coach Craig Fulton speaks to Narayan Singh.
Who will be the next president of United States of America?
Will Donald Trump make a dramatic comeback, or will Kamala Harris become America's first woman president?
It's a tight race to the White House.
The knives are out and the battle lines sharply drawn.
He's becoming increasingly unstable and unhinged.
She's a threat to democracy because she shouldn't even be the candidate.
I'm Amritpal Singh.
I'm Shubhendu Ghosh.
We travel across the United States
to decode the issues at the heart of this polarized election.
Watch this space only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Now let's get you all the sports news. And the 2026 Commonwealth Games, which will be held in the city of Glasgow in the United Kingdom. It's going to feature only 10 sports this time round because they want to remain budget friendly. The Games will run from July 23 to August 2 across 4 venues. It includes sports like athletics, swimming, artistic gymnastics, track cycling, netball, weightlifting, boxing, judo, bowls, and 3x3 basketball. Among the sports to be axed are badminton, cricket, hockey, and rugby sevens. The exclusion of these sports will severely impact India's medal prospects, though track cycling and boxing have been included. Glasgow also hosted the event in 2014, and the Games were originally slated to be held in Victoria in Australia, but the state withdrew as the host 2023 because of rising costs. The exclusion of hockey from the Glasgow Commonwealth Games comes as a big blow to Paris bronze medalist India, because India's men's hockey team captain Harmanpreet Singh and the coach Craig Fulton, they've expressed their disappointment. Let's look at this report.
Team captain Harmanpreet Singh and coach Craig Fulton have expressed their disappointment over the exclusion of the hockey from the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. Hockey, along with shooting, cricket, badminton, table tennis, squash and triathlon, has been dropped in a bid to limit costs and streamline logistics, as only 4 venues will host the entire event. These cuts have impacted several sports that have traditionally been strong contenders, particularly for nations like India.
It is what it is. Unfortunate. That's further down the line. That's for another time with bigger planning ramifications, and what happens then and what happens, I don't know.
वो भी एक टारगेट है अच्छा टूर्नामेंट था, और जो हमारा टारगेट था इस बार गोल्ड मेडल का था, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली अभी ये सुनने को मिली है सर, ये हमारे हाथ में नहीं, हम नहीं सोच सकते इसके बारे में.
Hockey has been a marquee event at the Commonwealth Games, especially for countries like India, Australia and England, which have rich hockey legacies. India's men's and women's team have consistently performed well, making this exclusion even more disheartening for players and fans. Narayan Singh's report for DD India.
Clearly a surprising exclusion there. The Indian hockey coach Craig Fulton, in an exclusive interview to DD India's Narayan Singh, said that new faces have been introduced in the Indian hockey team. Fulton expressed his excitement about taking Indian hockey to the next level.
Dropped from the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, and to talk on this, I am joined by the coach of the Indian hockey team, Craig Fulton. Craig, big disappointment dropping a game like hockey from the Commonwealth Games.
I just heard about it today, so I'm not really up to speed with what's the latest reasoning, and so my comments are very limited at the moment.
Talking about the Indian hockey team, what's your take on the recent progress of the Indian hockey team from winning to the bronze in the Olympics, then winning the Asian Champions Trophy? So what's your take on the progress of the Indian hockey team?
Yeah, I think there's been consistency, which is good, from Asian Games and then ACT to Paris to ACT. But yeah, that cycle's over. Now we start all over again, and 4 years from now to LA, and 2 years roughly to, just over 2 years to World Cup. It's an exciting phase, and we want to broaden the base a bit and open up for more selections and bring in some quality players to make our team stronger. That's the main reason.
So talking about the goalkeeping after the departure of the Srijesh, Krishna Pathak is there and Suraj Karkare is there. So how you look this transition for the Indian hockey team? Especially it's a challenge for you as a coach because defense is an important aspect.
Yeah, goalkeeping is a specific position, and Pathak is our number one at the moment, and Suraj is a very good goalkeeper. And I'm glad to have him in the squad, and then we still have Power, and we still have some of the under-21 goalkeepers and Mo as well. So, yeah, the goalkeeping department is good. We'll see after these two games where we are right now, but looking in 2 years' time, yeah, we've got depth, so that's positive.
So what's the next target of the Indian hockey team? Considering the fact that we are missing to bring back that lost glory in Olympics, especially the golden days, do you have some plans in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's always to win gold in whatever tournament we play, and right now we have 2 games against Germany, so in 15 minutes we have training. So my head is around training, and then the match tomorrow, and then we'll see how that goes and debrief, and then hopefully we can get a result here in Delhi.
So definitely the coach, Craig Fulton, is saying that new faces has been induced in the hockey team, and definitely he will try to put the Indian hockey team on the next level through his plans and scheme.
Well, moving on, the Indian men's hockey team will face reigning world champions Germany in a 2-match series in New Delhi on the 23rd and 24th of October. Now this comes after India's successful defense of their title at the Asian Champions Trophy in China. The series marks the return of international hockey to the Indian capital. Harmanpreet Singh will captain the Indian side with Vivek Sagar Prasad as the vice-captain. The dynamic midfielder Hardik Singh will miss the series because of an injury. The series will also see Rajinder Singh and Aditya Arjun Lagate make their international debuts. In the UEFA Champions League fixture, Real Madrid are set to face Borussia Dortmund. This is in their next match on Tuesday night. Ahead of this match, Dortmund head coach Nuri Sahin said that his team will need more than just a strong mentality to overcome Real Madrid in their clash. Meanwhile, the Real Madrid bounced back in the Champions League after losing to Lille in the first match. Real registered a 2-1 victory over Celta Vigo in the La Liga. Despite having Kylian Mbappe and Vincent Jr. up front, Carlo Ancelotti's side was unable to score any goal in the away outing. Los Blancos will hope to replicate the success against Borussia Dortmund and secure their second win in the European competition this season. The coach, Carlo Ancelotti, said that he prefers to have Mbappe focused on attacking and being ready for quick transitions to get Real on board.
Well, it's only mentality is not enough to survive against Real Madrid, especially in the stadium, against the champions of this competition. We need everything. We need a lot of quality, a lot of self-confidence, mentality, of course, and also in Germany we say game luck. I don't know, but also the game has to go in our way. So only mentality will not be enough. But of course, without mentality, you have absolutely no chance here.
We have more difficulty in a possession-controlled game because we don't have players with characteristics to play in tight spaces. We have players who can exploit their attributes in an open field. That's why a back-and-forth game suits us well. In this new Champions League format, a match like this is very important. Especially after the defeat against Lille, I believe we have to win tomorrow.
India's Mohammad Shami is now pain-free following a heel surgery earlier this year. The pace bowler said that he will look to get a couple of domestic matches under his belt to improve his sharpness ahead of the tour of Australia beginning next month. Shami has not played for the national side since the 50 overs World Cup final against Australia last year. India will hope to have Shami back in their ranks as they head to Australia for 5 tests, which begin in Perth on November 22. Now, the 3-year-old Lauren Schwartz is making some amazing paintings. after accidentally discovering his passion for abstract paintings about a year ago during a family trip. The little Bavarian also owns an Instagram account featuring his work that has gathered almost 90,000 followers. Recently, many of his paintings were sold for several thousand euros. Well, art is not quite child's play, but looks like it. That's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, you can get the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lin. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.